Hello everyone, it's Kathy here, and today I'd like to share with you a tutorial on how I created this stamped floral heart border. And for this tutorial I won't be sharing how I made the card but how I made the border. So to create the border I used a Spellbinders heart die set and the Altenew vintage roses, stamps and dies, some masking paper, and the masking paper is really helpful in creating masks so that when you're stamping you can mask over. One side sticky and it's removable, which is really helpful. And also I will be using the masking paper to create the center heart mask, and also I'll be using two of the roses, the largest rose and one of the smaller roses, which is a filler, and it's actually the bottom one. So the large one is the major one and the smaller one is the one that fills in the gaps. And I'll also be using the leaves which are in the set and the first three which is in this leaf cluster, and I'll also be using the first three accents to add the dimension which the layering stamps from Altenew are renowned for. So you can see I'm starting off by creating the mask. So I'm using the coordinating Altenew dies which come with the pack to create the masks, and I'm cutting some of the leaves and also the roses. So to make the process quicker, if you can cut quite a few, it does make the process a lot faster. So I've got the major heart ready, and on the stamp set I'll be using the first three, which is the largest of the roses, and I'll also be using the Altenew cubes. I have a few in my stash, and what is really great about them is that you have a light color, a medium color and a dark color, which is really helpful, particularly when you are using layering stamps. So I'll be using the pink, which is the Frosty pink, cotton candy and coral berries. So I'm just putting the heart mask in the center of this cardstock, and what I like to do to make things easy for myself is to position my ink cubes in order from light to medium to dark, and then place the stamp that I'm going to be using in front of that particular ink so that I know which ink I'm stamping in which particular ink color. So for this particular stamp set, you can download the stamping guide from the Altenew website, and they have a suggested way of layering, but I've had the greatest success with this particular stamp set by starting with the second stamp and starting with that, which is the medium colored ink. So I'm stamping that on my paper first, and when I'm doing that I am stamping it so that part of the stamp covers the mask and the rest of the stamp goes onto the background. So I'm trying to evenly space this particular stamp around the heart because this will be the main, and in between I'm just cleaning off my stamp because in the past I've just been wiping it off with a baby wipe, and because I'm needing to see through it, it really didn't actually clean the stamp off. So to line this up, you line it up from the bottom and you can see through the stamp, and then you can stamp that next layer. So I'm stamping the darkest layer now, which is the third stamp, lining it up over the previous layer, and again stamping over the previous layer, which is partly on the masked heart and the rest of it is on the background paper. And you can see already the definition that those two layers has already started to create, and the rose already looks amazing. So now is the lightest layer, which is that solid stamp, and again you line it up from the bottom and you can see through, and you just stamp it over the entire image, and you can see just how beautiful that image looks, that beautiful rose. So my recommendation is, when you are using these stamps, is to really clean them, because it does make a difference. When I first started using these stamps, I would always use my Misty, but if you clean your stamps, you can actually stamp with acrylic blocks. But you really do need to give them a good clean in between. So now I am using the masks that we cut out prior to this with the coordinating dies, and what we're doing is just covering over the stamped images that we've just done, because we are going to stamp the leaves, and the leaves will look more natural if you stamp them over the mask, so it looks like that they're coming out from behind the rose. So hence the mask really helps you to achieve this. So as I mentioned before, if you can have quite a few masks prepared in advance, the stamping doesn't, it speeds it up. So I'm using again the Altenew inks, and I'll only be using two colors, and I'm using Frayed Leaf and Forest Glades, so the lightest color and a medium color. So I'm starting with the lightest color, and I'm overlapping so that at least 3 leaves are coming through and poking out the side of the flower, and also onto the heart itself. So I'm just rotating the background paper as I go, just so that I'm trying to continue following the mask, so that we do follow that heart shape. So you can see that it's already starting to fill up with those leaves. So once that's done, the next part is locating the 3 leaves. Now these are all separate, and so this is where the guide comes in, and again you just have to refer back to that guide sheet and match them up so that you can find the correct next layer. And I will be using the next darkest color to stamp each, and again rotating the page as I go, and this doesn't really take long, and I'm not always perfectly lined up, but you can't really notice that much. So I'm just rotating the page and stamping, and it's quite easy to line up. If you keep cleaning your stamp and making sure that it's clean, it's very easy to line up. If you really want it to be very accurate, then you could use a Stamp-A-Majig, but I don't think it's really quite necessary. I think that for this particular layer that you can use a acrylic block quite successfully. So I'm up to my second leaf now, and it's the same process as before. I'm just rotating my page and stamping, and it really is easy to line up. And sometimes I lose track of where I'm up to, so every now and then I just have to stop and just double check. And now I'm up to my third leaf, and it's a matter of just going around and filling in the spaces. and it really does make a difference having that accent layer. You could do a third layer. The stamps do have a third layer for the leaves, but I felt that the 2 layers was quite sufficient for this particular card. So I'm just taking stock here to make sure that I've covered all of the leaves, and I've done that. So now I'm just peeling off my mask because I don't need them anymore, and I can just take a quick look at what I've covered. And now I'm up to the 3rd rose, and it's the smallest rose, and it's 3 flowers once more. So this particular rose is smaller, and for the design purpose it's purely just to fill in the gaps. So again, I'm putting them in order of stamping, again coordinating them with the colored ink, because I find that helps me to make sure I don't accidentally stamp in the wrong color. So now I'm just masking up again, this time using the masking paper to cover up the leaves, because we will be stamping in between the leaves now, so that it looks like these smaller roses are peeking through, and it really makes a difference having that space covered through, and it helps to continue the definition of the shape of the heart. So for this, I'm starting with the darkest color, and I had to practice quite a few times to get the feel of this one, but because my stamps weren't that clean, that is what the difficulty was. So once I gave them a good clean, everything lined up really, really well. So starting with the darkest layer is really helpful, and you can actually line things up really, really easily for this stamp. So I didn't cut quite enough masks, so I'm just transferring them over to the other leaves, because I'm going to stamp in between all the leaves. I don't want to have any spaces if possible. So I'm stamping my darkest layer, and for this one you line it up at the bottom, and you will see that when you have practice quite a bit, you get faster and you can see where to line things up. And when you follow the guides, it makes sense because you can see it through the stamps. So with this particular rose, it actually is 2 sections down the bottom that you are lining up, and then the top layer just completes it, and it's a really nice closed up rose that is rolled, and it's really quite pretty. So I'm just peeling off my masks, and this is nearly done. I think I've only got 1 or 2 more spaces to fill in. Even if there isn't a bit of space, I still like to fill in the gaps, because it just helps to continue the flow of the actual design. When I was practicing with this particular pattern, I actually thought that for this part of the tutorial I forgot to press record, so I actually have filmed this twice, and it's amazing, once you do this once or twice, it becomes really quick and fast once you've got all the masks put into place. So I have about 3 heart wreaths, so I'll be able to use them in future projects, but I look forward in seeing what this technique looks like when you use different colored roses, or even a combination of roses, because it really does look very, very pretty. So just peeling off that final heart mask, and it really is very simple to do. So there you go, have a try, and I hope you enjoy it. Thanks so much.